So today we've got a bit of an all-stars cast, a bit of a who's who of subreddits. We've got a bit of petty revenge, an appearance of an entitled mother, and just a little touch of wholesome goodness to warm our hearts. On today's first episode of IDontWorkHereLady, what happens when a family starts getting unwanted calls for a business on their home phone? Well, first they complain, and then they plan some petty revenge to punish those responsible. After being rushed to the hospital in an ambulance, this woman just wants to rest and recover from her health issues, but an entitled person is determined to harass her, even though she keeps insisting she isn't staff. He is approached by an older gentleman who confuses him with someone else, but this top bloke decides to deal with it in the most wholesome way possible. What was his wholesome reaction? You'll only find out by watching this episode of VoiceyHere's IDontWorkHereLady. This story was called I Got Fired from a Hospital That I Don't Work For. So I just found out about this sub from someone who suggested I post my recent firing from the hospital I was admitted to. I had a rather crappy Memorial Day weekend. Long and rather boring story short, I had a seizure and face planted into my bedroom door. After a fun ride to the hospital on backboard and neck brace, a whole bunch of tests followed, and I was admitted because, as it turns out, my autoimmune condition isn't quite being managed as well as I thought it was. Fun times. After the first couple of days sleeping off the concussion and terrible medication side effects, I made it to the third day and feel well enough to walk around and even make a trip to the cafeteria downstairs to get something better than the standard hospital food. Now, I didn't really have much in the way of clothing. My wife brought my favorite hoodie and clean underthings, but forgot pants of all things. So a really nice nurse scrounged up a pair of the hospital's blue scrub pants for me. So I was happily free of the IV cart for the next few hours, and decided to get some chocolate milk and maybe a tasty snack to treat myself and lift my spirits a bit. But it ended up being a rather sad, frustrating affair before I could even make it onto the elevator. I'm pretty slow walking, but I'm just content to not be confined to bed or tangled up in tubes. So I enjoy the sunlight and make friendly conversation with the day shift nurses as I pass by. Sometimes it's the small things that make me happy, but all that happiness goes away when I make it to the waiting area and elevator lobby, when a about 60-year-old woman with the most sour expression on her face steps off the elevator. Like sucked on a whole barrel of lemons type of sour. So I try to give her a wide berth, but Pucker Face isn't having it. She marches straight up to me and gets well into my personal space and starts demanding that I take her to her son's room and give her an immediate rundown of his medical ailments. The exchange is as follows between me and Pucker Face.
Finally, one of you lazy bastards is going to take me to my son's hospital room and explain to me my baby boy's condition. I'm his mother after all, and that wife of his just hasn't been taking care of him like she should.
What?
Oh, don't play stupid. You're not pretty enough for that. I know my son's here, and I want to see him right this instant. His name is this, and I think he was brought in on Friday.
I was really confused and felt bad for her son. I don't work here.
What do you mean you don't work here? You have on scrubs in a hospital. You're a nurse. Now take me to my son.
I started to get irritated and sassy. Dude, I'm not a nurse. Not everyone who wears scrubs is a nurse. I just didn't feel like going down to the cafeteria in a gown with my butt flapping in the wind. She waves her hands as if that's magically going to make me not being a nurse change in any way.
You're just using that as an excuse to not get in trouble for sucking at your job and being a little jerk.
I hold up my wrist, including the lovely bright red allergy band. Yeah, no, I'm not a nurse. I'm a patient, and I really don't have to be explaining this to you. Go find someone else who can help you. But you should probably not be such a jerk about it. She was inching so close, I put my hands up to push her back, out of the 4 remaining inches of my personal space.
I will act however I want, and you better believe I'm going to get your lying butt fired. I want to speak to your supervisor. Such unprofessional behavior and talking back to a patient's family. Your bedside manner is atrocious.
I was pointing to the growing crowd. The head nurse is that way, and for the last time, I don't work here. I'm a patient, just like your son. And being a jerk to people, especially nurses, is a good way to get thrown out on your butt by security, so you might want to tone it down. By this time, a couple nurses came over. All of them have clear name badges and credentials on display, as well as these little communication devices that are like Star Trek communicators, but look and perform a lot less cool. The head nurse, who was so sweet, just like all the ones I had during my stay, had taken on the scary lady that made me think twice, didn't even scare crazy Puckerface. She barges right up to the nurse and demands to be taken to her son, spouting off his name and date of birth to basically everyone on the floor, then demands that I be fired.
Oh, and fire that woman. She's completely incompetent and rude.
The head nurse deadpans with a chill game I am rather envious of. She doesn't work here, and I'm going to have to ask you to refrain from yelling and harassing people. This is a hospital and people are trying to heal and rest.
I understand, but this woman isn't letting me see my son, and he needs his mommy right now. She needs to be dealt with for being such a terrible, irresponsible nurse.
But I'm not a nurse. Again, she is not employed by this hospital. After going back and forth for several minutes, Puckerface can't seem to wrap her brain around the fact that I don't actually work at the hospital. She's basically a broken record, calling for me to get fired like she's forgotten why she's here in the first place. The head nurse is calm and has explained it as many different ways as she possibly can, and is starting to rub her temples, with what must be a nasty headache. Finally, after a couple of seconds of quiet, she turns to me. Hey, you're fired, okay? Okay. She then holds the elevator for me. Go now, get on your way. I get on the elevator and head downstairs, incredibly grateful to be away from that monstrous woman, and go to collect my well-deserved prize and text my wife about the whole thing. She'll find it hilarious. But the story doesn't end there. As it turns out, when they look up information for her son, who turns out to be 2 rooms down from mine, he specifically said his mother is on the list of people who absolutely, under no circumstances, could be allowed to visit. So I watched her get dragged, kicking, screaming, and biting through the hospital main lobby when I was returning from the cafeteria. The chocolate milk and cookies were twice as tasty after that. Her son turned up that evening to apologize for his mother, since news of the crazy lady spread across the floor like wildfire. He and his family were really cool. Looks like we're going to be physical therapy buddies now, and we can swap crazy mum stories together. Also, shout out to all the nurses out there. You are all the real MVPs for all the care you do, and for putting up with people's crazy antics. Thanks. I get that they had to fake the whole she's being fired, so that she could just go down the elevator and leave, but part of me really doesn't like that Puckerface would have felt like she got her way. It's no surprise that the son put her on the list of people not allowed to visit. This story was called We Don't Sell Pizza Because You Have the Wrong Number. We used to have a phone number that was very similar to Pizza Hut. Their number was 455-5575 and ours was 455-5515. Now these 2 numbers are commonly mixed up for obvious reasons. This was back before the days of cell phones and everyone having their own personal number. And we actually had to get a caller ID because of this. For years, we had this Pizza Hut's client base call our house. About 50-50 split sober drunk. And they would order pizzas. The thing is, people will not listen when you tell them, sorry, wrong number. We would have drunk people call back 4 or 5 times, and then begin screaming into the phone, I know this is a frickin' Pizza Hut, you jerk! Or, give me the number or I'll kick your butt! This was pretty normal, and the Pizza Hut was even aware of this, and profusely apologized when we would call them, never giving us anything for free though, despite the massive inconvenience of the phone ringing off the hook. Well, Pizza Hut corporate then pays for an advertisement on paper, billboard, and phone book. And guess what? They botched the number. They put our number on the things for the phone number, as one of the locations is in our town for Pizza Hut's pizza. Why? Well, because 1s and 7s are the same number apparently. The phone calls we get explodes. It goes from like 3 to 5 calls a day to like 100 to 200. Initially we were directing people with a message that simply said, this is not Pizza Hut, their number is... It didn't end. We would get calls with people screaming into the voice recording.
I want a frickin' pizza. This is bullcrap. I'm going to end whoever doesn't answer this frickin' phone.
Aren't boomers great? We got that stuff all the time from older people. I cannot tell you how many times I've been told to end myself for trying to direct someone to the correct place. And for some reason, no one ever listens. Well, upon this happening, my dad calls into the Pizza Hut and says, "Look, all we want is to not have to change our number. If you guys will please change yours or pay for ours to be changed. It was like a $10 fee or something. We will stop getting your phone calls." The manager cussed my dad, who had him on speakerphone, calling him a crapload of names and for getting him bad reviews, as well as losing customers to his branch, which is locally owned. What a freaking joke. It's costing their business a solid 10 grand easy over a phone number. Why not just change it? I don't know. My dad looks at the phone, hangs up and says, "Okay jerk, you want to be like that about it?" My dad then instructs my 17-year-old self and my sister to take all calls from now on. If it rings, pick it up, take the order and say, "Okay, your pizza should be there in 1.5 hours. Then when they call back to tell them, "Sorry, the driver just left." And if they call back a third time, say, "Well, I can get you on the phone with my manager, but he's probably gonna beat you up if you keep complaining." And then switch the phone with someone else and have them say, "Listen here, you aren't getting your pizza and we are keeping your money. Freaking get over it." Or something along those lines anyway. 2 weeks pass and my dad tries to get said Pizza Hut to change our number for free, never pointing out that they stuffed up their ad, as apparently they were completely oblivious to this fact. Again, the manager screams at my dad saying,
"I don't have the money to change your frickin' number."
We even tried calling other Pizza Huts to get the issue resolved, and their corporate, with no real luck. Fair enough, it's game on time now. Why? For 2 reasons. 1, my dad got a phone with a transfer button, and 2, because summer was rolling around, and me and my sister loved messing with people over this. It was a really bad influence on us, to be honest. We fielded phone calls every day, all day long. We had friends come over and they loved partaking in the same thing. We had a general plan. 1, every other call would get a pizza delivery. 2, the other calls we would get them really ticked off, talking crap to them and saying, "Okay, do you want to speak to my manager?" And just cold transfer them to the Pizza Hut. It took 6 more weeks of us doing this and the Pizza Hut closed. A few weeks before they closed, we got a phone call from Pizza Hut corporate, who more or less threatened us with a cease and desist. Sounded like they didn't really understand what was actually happening, as it accused us of stealing their phone calls. We called their corporate and explained what was going on, and even played our recordings of talking with them before about the issue and ignoring us. All they said is,
"You had better stop, this is illegal,"
over and over. We didn't stop. They were aware of what was going on and didn't want to do anything about it. A few weeks after the owner lost his job, he called our house and was trying to argue with my dad about how bad of a person he was because I lost money and got my butt beat several times. Apparently we had ticked a few people off so bad, they actually went in and attacked him and other staff. To this day, it cracks me up that a company can be so oblivious, and is the single reason I don't believe we live in anything close to a meritocracy. Anyone in this position who has any merit would instantly change the number, but not a corporation who has money to sue, and not a middle manager who has an ego problem. You can't really blame Pizza Hut for having a similar number, and you certainly don't deserve free pizza just because they have a similar number. It's still the fault of the people ringing because they rang the wrong number, and you wouldn't really expect a free pizza from them. However, in this story, Pizza Hut did make a mistake. By advertising the wrong number, well, any trouble caused was definitely self-inflicted. I love how this became like a summer family activity for these guys. You know, most families would go to like a theme park or the beach or something, but not this family. They're gonna spend all day just messing with people. This story was called, "I Was Finally Freed Today." Just a quick encounter I had with a crazy lady today. My kids have the day off from school, so I took the day off from work, and we had a daddy-daughters day. I took them out to breakfast and then a trip to the mall. We started off in one of the department stores, and my daughters decided to start looking there for new outfits. Now, I love my daughters, But shopping is absolutely not my thing. So while they're looking for clothes, I'm standing over by one of the customers, waiting and reading on my phone. I hear someone make a noise behind me, so I look up and there's a lady standing there with a huge armful of clothes. I figured she was heading to check out, so I moved over to the side of the counter. She says, "Excuse me," and I figured she's talking to one of the employees. A few seconds later, she yells, "Excuse me," and I look up to see what's going on. That's when I realized she was talking to me. By this time, people are staring at us, including my daughters. This is the rest of the encounter. "Yeah? Don't yeah me! Take these! I don't want any of them!" She sticks the clothes out towards me. "Yeah, I don't work here." "I don't care what department you work in! Take these darn clothes!" Now, on any other day, I would have simply told her to get lost and go find someone who works there. But since I was out with my daughters, I decided to handle it a little differently. "Excuse me?" She's getting really ticked off at this point, and she yells again, "Take these darn clothes!" And this time she shoves the clothes into my chest. I look down at the clothes for a second, and then look at her with a huge smile on my face.
"Master has presented Dobby with clothes. Dobby is free."
And I threw the entire pile of clothes back in her face. She was standing there stunned and shocked. People in the store were cracking up laughing. My oldest daughter was trying to hide because she was so embarrassed, which is nothing new. I walked over to my girls and asked if they found anything they liked. They hadn't, so we left. As we were walking out, I could see the crazy lady yelling at a couple of actual employees who looked like they were doing their best not to laugh also. There's nothing quite like a joke to humiliate someone in response to a rude person. Her behavior was rude enough even if it was an actual employee. Yeah, he made a pretty funny joke, but really her behavior was humiliating in and of itself. She just didn't realize it. But I will have to remember that line next time anyone hands me a piece of clothing. This story was called "It's a Beautiful Day for a Train Ride." Right, so this took place way back in 2007, when I was in my early 20s, working full-time at an auto parts store. I drove a white 1982 Nissan Pulsar. It was ancient, but no complaints. Relevant, I promise. It's 7 AM. I'm driving to work one morning and pull up at a crosswalk to allow a dog walker to pass me. Without warning, my passenger door opens and a gentleman hops in next to me, nods, says a friendly hello, and buckles his seatbelt. He was a sweet-faced, white-haired senior, wearing a sweater and brown pants. Definitely in his 80s. I stared in shock and stumbled my words, totally bewildered by what was happening. He saw my expression and said, "Oh, sorry, the train station, please." That's when I saw the taxi rank near the crosswalk. Taxis here are white, but definitely not hatchbacks, like my car was. He had a big cheery smile, and still puzzled, I realized that the local train station was 2 streets away from where I worked. I was heading past there anyway, and he didn't seem like an axe murderer, so why not? I relaxed a little, shrugged and said, sure thing." We drove off together and he peered out the window smiling. He said, "You taxis are much quicker these days. It's a beautiful day for a train ride, don't you think?" He looked at me, still with his big smile, and said, "I'm Jerry, lovely to meet you. I'm meeting my friend for breakfast today. I'm so excited. I haven't been on a train in years. All my friends have passed on, and I don't really need to go out of town. Well, not until I made a new friend recently. It's funny how life goes, isn't it? An old codger like me with a breakfast date? Can't you imagine?" "Oh, well that sounds lovely, Jerry. Where are you off to?" He cheerily described the town he was visiting, an hour away by train, and described the store he wanted to visit while he was there. We chatted the whole way, and I was so taken by how upbeat and cheerful he was. We pulled into the offloading zone outside the train station, and he pulled out his wallet. I jumped in saying, "Oh, no charge, mate. I don't have my meter working yet." Telling a lie was better than deflating his happy spirit with an embarrassing situation. He was chuffed. It was a chilly morning. I walked him to the ticket office, where there was a heated waiting room he could sit in until his train arrived. He thanked me, smiled and said, "It's a beautiful day for a train ride. You take care now." Take care, Jerry. It's been 11 years and I often find myself smiling when I remember him. Alright, this story makes me want to bring back wholesome stories. I know we only did one, but not many people seem to like it. But I liked this one, so I'm gonna do another one and I hope you guys like it too. I'm not crying, okay? You're crying. Shut up. If you'd like your story to be narrated by me, don't forget to visit the subreddit r/VoiceyHere, link below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.
Master has presented Dobby with clothes. Dobby is free!